What is up, everybody? My name is Jeremy and welcome to the channel. And this is going to be my preliminary review of episode 2 of House of the Dragon, The Rogue Prince. Now, I've only seen the episode once, so this is just going to be my initial first thoughts and reactions on the episode, and we will be doing a much more in-depth live discussion of it later on, so definitely be on the lookout for that as well. So, yeah, without further ado, let's dive in and see what we can see. Now, the first thing that I noticed was the new title intro for House of the Dragon. Well, mostly new anyway. They used the same score from the original Game of Thrones series, which was okay, I guess. I mean, I would have liked to see a little slight variation on the song from the original, but it is nice to hear that epic Game of Thrones score again, and to see the new title sequence, which was pretty cool. I don't know how iconic it's going to be compared to the original Game of Thrones intro, just because that was so iconic with the map overlay and the astrolabe and the house sigils and all that. It was just a really iconic intro, so it's going to be fun to see how this one stacks up to it going forward. But next, the episode starts off where we get a small council meeting where Corlys Valyrian is really concerned about the Stepstones and what's going on down there with the crab feeder and the triarchy. He remarks that 4 of his ships were just recently lost, and he really wants something to be done about this Stepstones action. Whereas the king and the hand seem to be a little more lackadaisical towards the Stepstones, as of this point anyway. They don't seem to be taking it as seriously as Corlys does. Then Rhaenyra suggests sending dragon riders. She speaks up in the council meeting and reminds Viserys that, you have dragon riders at the end of the day. Send them down there and, that'll put an end to this real quick. But Viserys definitely isn't that kind of ruler. He isn't the type to just hop on a dragon or send his dragon riders out to go and, wreck shop. It just isn't his style. He's more of a peaceful type king. Next, we get Rhaenyra, who is choosing a new member of the kingsguard, and the episode does start off where they remark how a legendary member of the kingsguard had passed away in his sleep, which happens just in the books as well. And yeah, it leaves it to Rhaenyra to go choose the replacement for the kingsguard, and of course, she sees all of the knights that are assembled in the courtyard, and instantly, of course, she's going to pick Criston Cole. Not only do I think she likes him, of course, but she also remarks that he's the only one that has actual battle experience and isn't just a tourney knight. So she chooses Criston Cole to be elevated to the member of Kingsguard. Then we get a really interesting scene between Viserys and Alicent, where Viserys is teaching her about old Valyria and some of its customs, and how the capital city of Valyria was built around a volcano, just like Dragonstone. And here, Viserys is referring to the infamous 14 Flames of Valyria, which is a chain of active volcanoes that the Valyrian freehold was built on. And many believe that the eruption of these volcanoes is what eventually brought on the doom of Valyria, but that's a video for another day. He then tells Alicent how the High Lords of Valyria lived at the volcanic face, which was the closest source of their power, and explains how Valyrian blood mages used to work their craft. And I really love how they're sprinkling a ton of Valyrian Easter eggs throughout the show. It's really, really fun. I love the deep lore behind Valyria, the Doom, the taming of dragons, all of that stuff. So to see all of these Valyrian Easter eggs has been really, really fun. Then Alicent asks Viserys if he thinks Westeros could ever become a new Valyria of sorts. To which Viserys is highly doubtful, and he goes on to talk about how Valyria, when they were at the height of their power, had over 1,000 dragons and a navy big enough to span the entire world, and he just thinks that the glory days of old Valyria are just that, the old glory days, and they probably won't be returning. Then we cut to a scene of Rhaenyra and Alicent in the Sept, and Rhaenyra just makes a statement how she thinks that maybe Viserys chose her as heir more to spite and spurn Daemon as opposed to thinking that she's actually worthy. So you can tell she's just got a little bit of her chip on her shoulder, and she really kind of wants to prove herself as a worthy heir. Then we get a really nice scene between Viserys, Rhaenys, and Corlys, talking about how the crown could be perceived as vulnerable right now after the death of the queen, and how the succession isn't as strong as they'd like it to be, and Corlys proposes that Viserys should marry his daughter Laena and unite the 2 great Valyrian houses and secure the line that much further by potentially having more heirs. We then get a scene with Viserys and Grand Maester Mellos, where they're making a last-ditch effort to try and save Viserys' finger that he had recently cut on the throne. and you can tell it's really getting infected. There's definitely something going on there. And there's a lot of fan speculation going on as well. A lot of fans think that maybe someone is slowly poisoning Viserys, that every time he gets cut on the throne, he's slowly being poisoned, and there's definitely something going on there. And if you look back in episode 1, he does have that other cut on his back that just won't seem to heal, that he attributes from sitting on the throne as well. So there's definitely something going on there with Viserys' cuts and thrones, and hopefully that'll get explained more as the series goes. Then we get a scene of Viserys meeting with a young Laena Velaryon, and Laena's asking him about what it was like to ride Balerion the Black Dread, and how Viserys was Balerion's final rider before he passed. And Viserys states how once Balerion died, the kind of last memory of old Valyria died along with him. She then mentions how Vhagar is still around, and that they kind of don't exactly know where Vhagar is at the moment, that Vhagar is definitely too big for the dragon pit, and Viserys even remarks that, Vhagar might even be a little too big for this world, which is really cool, just, setting up how massive and ancient Vhagar is going to be when we finally, see her for the first time. Then Laena asks about Vhagar and whether or not Viserys knows where Vhagar is and where she's made her nest. And Viserys goes on to say that he heard rumors about her settling somewhere on the coast of the Narrow Sea, and Laena even reports that the people of Spicetown can, quote-unquote, hear her song at times, and that it's a sad thing, which was very interesting, I thought. And I guess it makes sense. I mean, Vhagar is the last living dragon of the, Aegon's conquest. He's kind of the last sibling, so I guess it would make sense that Vhagar would be a little lonely at times. The scene ends with Laena saying that she'd be honored to, further the Targaryen line, and she'd give him many sons, and you can just tell, like, right off the bat, Viserys is really uncomfortable with how young she is, and he's really not feeling it. Then we get the scene between Rhaenyra and Rhaenys, the queen who never was, talking about the succession and how the realm might never accept a female ruler, just further planting the seeds for the war of succession that's going to be taking place later on once Viserys ends up having more heirs. Then we get another scene of Viserys and Alicent, and Viserys is telling her how the realm expects him to remarry and have another queen, and Alicent presents him with the broken stone dragon that had broke in the episode prior. She had the stonemasons repair it for him, and you can just kind of see that bond forming between Viserys and Alicent. Then Otto comes in with some bad news, and we cut to an emergency council meeting held by Otto and Viserys and the rest of the small council, where there is a dragon keeper present. And the dragon keeper goes on to explain how a dragon egg was just stolen from the dragon pit. And I love how the entire scene is taking place in High Valyrian, and it definitely makes sense that the dragon keepers would know the language of High Valyrian as well, as they spend the most amount of time with the dragons. They help train the dragons, teach them commands and things like that. So it really makes sense that they would know the High Valyrian language as well. And I love hearing those scenes in High Valyrian. It's such a cool language. We also learn that the egg that Daemon stole, the particular egg, was the same egg that Rhaenyra had picked out for a young Balon that had just recently passed, her brother, Viserys' son, the heir for a day that had recently passed. So Rhaenyra is, I definitely think like she takes that a little bit personally when she hears that Daemon stole that specific dragon egg. We then see Otto and the Kingsguard confronting Daemon at Dragonstone, asking him to return the egg. And we get some really nice banter between Daemon and Criston Cole. And, Daemon kind of calls him out, and then Criston fires right back with, like, oh, I remember knocking you off your horse. And Daemon liked that line. I could tell there's, it was just fun, quippy banter between the two. It was really, really fun to see. And just when it looks like its fight is about to break out, we see that Caraxes shows up. Right as Daemon draws his sword, Caraxes shows up, in fact. And I think it just lends to the fact that the bond between dragon and dragon rider is strong, that they can kind of sense when the other is in peril. And it reminded me of Daenerys when she was in the fighting pits of Meereen, and, her life was in danger, and kind of Drogon just swoops in and kind of saves her, almost like Drogon knew she was in trouble. This kind of reminded me of that as well. Now, I know there's not a whole lot is known between the bond of dragon and dragon rider. It's left very ambiguous in the books, but stuff like this just leads me to believe that the dragons can kind of sense when their riders are in trouble, and sure as shit, Caraxes shows up and gives a badass roar. And man, Caraxes' roar sounds so cool. It almost sounds like alien-like. It's really, really, disturbing almost. But love hearing that. And just as Caraxes shows up, we also see that Rhaenyra and Syrax have also arrived as well. And Rhaenyra kind of lands her dragon on the wall of Dragonstone, kind of walks up to Daemon, and right away they kind of start going at it in High Valyrian. And you love seeing those High Valyrian scenes for me, as a, it's just I love hearing that language. But yeah, you kind of see the mutual respect that is there between Daemon and Rhaenyra, where Daemon doesn't hold many people in much high regard, but he does, have a few people that he cares about: his family, his brother, his niece, Rhaenyra, things like that. And Rhaenyra is just kind of able to talk him down and gets him to return the egg without any bloodshed. We then get a few scenes of Daemon and Mysaria on Dragonstone, and I heard a lot of people were wondering where the big table was in that room, the table, the carved table of Westeros that Aegon carved, and I have a feeling that we'll see that in another room. I just don't think it's in that room presently. I know on the main Game of Thrones show, the table was in that room when Stannis occupied Dragonstone, but we see that table in other scenes, and it just looks like it's in a different room at this point in time. So we will see the carved table at one point. It's just not in this room right now, I think. Then we see Viserys talking to one of his small council members, Lionel Strong, about the marriage proposal from Corlys. And you can really just see, again, you can see Viserys is really uncomfortable with how young Laena is, and he's really kind of asking for counsel in ways that what it would be like what is the blowback going to be if he kind of turns Corlys's proposal down, which he does eventually end up doing, that we see later on. And we see that Viserys does choose to marry Alicent, and much to Corlys's dismay. And you can see that even Rhaenyra was a little bit bothered by it. And I know the show has kind of been playing up the friendship between Rhaenyra and Alicent before later on they end up becoming enemies. And you can definitely see that rift starting to form here, where this is kind of the beginning of the end of that friendship, I think. The episode then ends with Corlys Velaryon talking to Daemon, and Corlys is kind of extending an invitation for an alliance. He kind of wants Daemon to help him in the war for the Stepstones. He kind of, plays it like this is kind of Daemon's chance to prove his worth beyond, just being a troublemaker. And we know how much Corlys really, really wants to rid the Stepstones of the Triarchy and the Crab Feeder, it's really hurting his business at this point. It's going to cripple his ports. He stands the most to lose with the Stepstones being in control of the Triarchy, so he's really motivated to get them out of there. And it looks like the Stepstone storyline is going to be taking place next week, judging by the trailer. I will have a episode 3 trailer breakdown coming on later on as well, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Stepstone storyline, the war for the Stepstones. We got a nice shot at Crab Feeder right before the episode ends. And one thing I noticed right off the bat on top of his gnarly mask is if you look at his shoulder and his arms, it almost looks like the Crab Feeder has grayscale. He definitely, or I don't know if it's grayscale or maybe it's burns, something like that. He definitely looks like he's all scarred up. He's got something going on there. Hopefully we get a little bit of backstory into the Crab Feeder. He definitely seems like a very interesting character, and we don't learn a whole lot about him in the books. There's not much backstory. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to the Stepstone storyline that looks like it's going to be taking place next week, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm just really looks like the show is firing on all cylinders. I'm really impressed with these first 2 episodes so far. It's been a great start, and like I said in my previous episode, I really like how we're getting a kind of in-depth look at Viserys' reign, and we're not jumping right into the dance. But don't get me wrong, I'm really looking forward to the dance. This thing is going to really pop off once the actual war starts, but I'm really enjoying the setup as of right now. And that is going to do it for us today. And yeah, this is just my initial thoughts on the episode. I've only seen it once up to this point. We will be doing a much more live, in-depth discussion on the episode later on, so be on the lookout for that as well. And yeah, I want to thank everyone out there for watching. Definitely hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming House of the Dragon and Song of Ice and Fire content. And I will catch you guys on the next one.